I used to think the phrase haunted dolls was just a lazy headline. People clicked on late at night, something you scroll past, shake your head at, and forget. I never believed in anything supernatural. I still don't. But there is a part of my life now that I don't talk about at parties. A stretch of years that changed how safe I feel in quiet neighborhoods, and how quickly I lock my doors. It started with a box on a sidewalk and ended with the realization I still haven, teeth fully shaken. And even now, when I see an old doll in a thrift store or sitting on a shelf in someone's home, I feel a tightness in my chest that I can't explain away. If you enjoy stories like this, the kind that feel a little too close to home, consider subscribing while you listen. It helps the channel, and it means you won't miss the next one. I wish I'd had a warning before mine began. I was 34 when my wife and I bought our first house. It was a modest place in a quiet suburb outside a mid-sized city in the northeastern United States. Tree-lined streets, sidewalks cracked with age, mailboxes that had seen decades of winters, the kind of neighborhood where people nodded politely but didn't pry. We liked that. After years of apartment living, the silence felt earned. On weekends, kids rode bikes in loose circles, and at night the loudest sound was usually a distant train horn. Our next-door neighbors were an older couple named Harold and Miriam. They'd lived there since the late 70s. Harold was tall and thin, with a stoop that suggested years of factory work. Miriam was smaller, always wrapped in sweaters, even in summer. They waved from their porch when we moved in. Harold helped me drag a broken lawn chair to the curb on our first trash day. Nothing about them seemed unusual. The house on the other side was empty for the first few months. Horrendo, we were told. People came and went. Then, one October afternoon, a moving truck parked out front. I was raking leaves when I saw a man standing on the sidewalk, staring at the house like he was memorizing it. He was in his late 40s, maybe early 50s. Clean-shaven, neatly dressed. He didn't acknowledge me until I said hello. He introduced himself as Thomas. His voice was soft, careful. He said he worked with antiques, specialized collections. He smiled when he said it, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. I didn't think much of it. Everyone has their quirks. The first odd thing happened about a week later. I came home from work and noticed a cardboard box sitting near the curb in front of Thomas's house. It was raining lightly, the kind of drizzle that soaks without warning. The box was open, and inside were dolls. Old ones. Porcelain faces, glassy eyes, tiny dresses stained with age. They were arranged upright, as if someone had placed them there deliberately. I assumed it was trash, maybe a clean-out from an estate. Still, it struck me as strange that they'd be left out in the rain like that. As I walked past, I felt a flicker of discomfort, the sense of being watched. I laughed at myself, unlocked my door, and went inside. That night, my wife mentioned the dolls too. She'd seen them from the kitchen window. We joked about creepy collectibles and moved on. The box was gone the next morning. Over the next few weeks, Thomas settled in. He rarely spoke unless spoken to. When he did, he was polite. Almost overly so. He asked about our work schedules, our trash days, whether the kids on the street ever caused trouble. Normal questions, Prometa told myself, friendly curiosity. Then, the dolls started appearing again. Sometimes they were in his front window, lined up on a shelf facing outward. Sometimes they were on his porch, seated on a bench. Once, I found one propped against our shared fence, its painted eyes turned toward our house. That one bothered me more than I expected. Prometa picked it up, intending to return it, and noticed how heavy it was. Solid. Not cheap. I carried it over and knocked on his door. Thomas answered quickly, as if he'd been waiting. He thanked me, took the doll and said it must have fallen during a windstorm. There hadn't been any wind. After that, I tried not to pay attention. We all bring things with us, into new places. Collections, habits, histories. It wasn't my business, but it became harder to ignore when the behavior started crossing small, almost invisible lines. One morning, I noticed footprints in the frost along the side of our house. They came right up to our bedroom window. I told myself it was a delivery person or a kid cutting through. Later that day, Thomas asked if we'd heard any strange noises at night. He said sometimes he worried about Breckons, The way he said it made me wonder if he was fishing for information. My wife began closing the curtains earlier than usual. She didn't say why, but I knew. The dolls multiplied. Every window in Thomas's house seemed to hold at least one. Some were missing arms or fingers. Some had hair that looked like it had been cut and reattached. He rearranged them frequently. I knew because I started noticing their positions, whether I wanted to or not. Facing the street, facing our house, turned slightly, as if angled for a better view. I started having the feeling that our routines were being tracked. If we left Latte, Thomas was outside watering his lawn. If we came home early, his porch light was on, even in daylight. Once, I caught him standing at the edge of his driveway, holding a doll by its torso, watching us unload groceries. He smiled and waved. I waved back. What else could I do? We talked about calling someone. Non-emergency, a wellness check. But what would we say? Our neighbor collects dolls and makes us uncomfortable. It sounded ridiculous when spoken out loud. Then came the first real boundary violation. I was home alone on a Saturday afternoon when I heard a knock at the back door. That door faced our yard and wasn't visible from the street. I froze. No one knocked there unless they knew us well. I walked slowly, peered through the window, and saw Thomas standing on the patio. In his hands was a doll wrapped in a towel. He said he'd found it in our yard and didn't he want it damaged by the sprinklers. I hadn't seen it there. I thanked him, took it, and closed the door. My hands were shaking. The towel smelled faintly of something sour. When I unwrapped it, I saw that the doll's dress was damp, as if it had been recently washed. Its eyes were slightly scratched, like someone had tried to remove them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the knock in my head, the casual way he'd approached our private space, the assumption that it was acceptable. Things escalated slowly, which was almost worse. A doll left on our front step, sitting upright, hands folded. A note once slipped under our door, apologizing for any inconvenience his hobby might cause. He wrote in careful, looping handwriting. He said the dolls helped him remember things. That line stuck with me. We started documenting everything. Dates, times, photos. I installed motion lights. For a while, that seemed to help. Thomas kept his distance. The dolls stayed on his property. Before I continue, I need you to understand this wasn't a new chapter of the story. This was the moment when everything that had been building quietly finally crossed a line. The same house, the same neighbor, and the same feeling that something was very wrong and getting closer. Then, one evening, I came home late from work and noticed the lights on in our living room. My wife wasn't home. I stood in the driveway, heart pounding, convinced someone had broken in. When I unlocked the door, the house was empty. The lights were off. I checked every room. On the coffee table was a doll I had never seen before. It was newer than the others. Plastic face, blonde hair, dressed in a pink sweater. It was sitting upright, facing the door, as if waiting for me. I didn't touch it. I called my wife and told her to come home with a friend. Then I called the police. They were professional, but skeptical. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints worth mentioning. They took the doll, said they'd talked to Thomas. One of them suggested it might be a prank. I didn't argue. I just wanted it gone. For a few days, things were quiet. Thomas avoided us. The dolls disappeared from his windows. I started to relax. Who's the little? Then Harold from next door knocked on our door. Noticed Thomas acting strange. He said Miriam had seen him in their yard at night, holding something that looked like a child. Hero laughed it off. Said it was probably one of those dolls. But his eyes were worried. That was the moment it clicked. We weren't imagining this. Other people saw it too. The realization didn't bring relief. It brought fear. The escalation was swift after that. One night, our motion lights went off repeatedly. I checked the cameras and saw Thomas standing just outside their range, holding a doll up toward our window. He stayed there for almost 10 minutes, unmoving. When the light went off, he stepped back into the shadows. We called the police again. This time, they warned him to stay off our property. They suggested a restraining order if it continued. The next morning, Every doll was back in his windows, all of them facing our house. I stopped going into the yard. My wife stopped opening the blinds. Our home felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were closing in. The breaking point came on a cold December night. We were asleep when we heard a noise downstairs. Soft thud. Then another. I grabbed a flashlight and went down slowly, every step heavy with dread. The back door was open. Cold air poured in. On the kitchen floor, arranged in a careful circle, were dolls, at least a dozen. All different, all facing inward. In the center was a notebook. I didn't read it. I called the police and waited outside in the freezing air until they arrived. This time, they took it seriously. They searched Thomas's house. What they found wasn't illegal, exactly, but it was disturbing enough. Hundreds of dolls, notes, photos of the neighborhood, of us, taken from angles that made my skin crawl. A timeline of sorts, documenting routines, movements. Thomas was taken in for questioning. Eventually, he was committed for evaluation. We were told he wouldn't be returning to the house. We moved 3 months later. I still think about that notebook sometimes, about what he remembered, and why he needed those dolls to help him do it. About how close we came to something worse. Even now, in a different house, in a different neighborhood, I double-check my locks. I notice small changes. I don't assume harmless intentions anymore. Have you ever had a neighbor who made you feel unsafe in ways you couldn't quite explain? Share your story below. You're not as alone as you think.